welcome back to Wisdom for Wealth TV. I'm Lela Mashatile, the founder of Wisdom for Wealth, a coaching and an education service. On a personal level, I'm on a journey to building wealth, but I use Wisdom for Wealth to help as many people as possible to do the same. So last week I took you guys through an introduction of who I am, but I also spent a bit of more time telling you about my passion for wealth and where it really comes from. So today I want to have a conversation about how I define wealth, because I think it's important that we're on the same page when you hear me speak about wealth. It's important that you understand what I mean when I refer to wealth, because I think there's so many definitions, right, that people have in terms of what wealth means. And I just wanted to do this and have this conversation with you so that you are aware of what I mean when I speak about wealth and what Wisdom for Wealth stands for when we speak about wealth. Okay, so let's get started. So how do you define wealth, right? I want to know, when you hear me say I'm on a mission to build wealth and to help as many people as possible do the same, what comes to mind? Yeah, money and lots of it, right? Because I think that is the common definition of wealth. Every time you hear people speak about wealth, it's very difficult to have a wealth conversation without speaking about lots and lots of money. But, according to the dictionary, wealth is defined as abundance, right? That's what wealth means, according to the dictionary. It means abundance. My question to you is, an abundance of what though, right? Is it an abundance of possessions, right? So it's the nice house, the nice car, the nice holidays, the jewelry, nice clothes. What does abundance mean to you, right? Is it an abundance of time, right? I know for me, I love looking at wealth in terms of time because I love having access to my time. I love being in control of my time. I love being able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. So for some people, that's what wealth means. But to some people, when they say wealth, they mean happiness. And I don't think some people are even aware of that. Some people, when they say they want to make more money, it's because they indirectly assume that that's going to make them a lot more happier. So if it's happiness, is it a matter of, peace, less stress? What do you mean when you speak about wealth? And I want you to take a moment, right? Think about that. What does wealth mean for you? Here's one thing that I want you to know. How you define wealth is deeply personal, right? People have different definitions of wealth, and I think that is very telling because it speaks to how we value different things, right? So we can't have a conversation about defining what wealth is without having a conversation about values, right? So if you value possessions, that's likely how you're going to define wealth. If you value time and having access and freedom, that's how you're going to define wealth. If you value less stress, just having a lot more peace in your life, that's going to influence how you define wealth. But I think one thing that is important to recognize is that how we define wealth is really connected to what we value. But I think a lot of what we value is going to come from our upbringing, what we saw in our communities while we were growing up, and even currently, right? So you can't define what wealth is without looking at what society has taught you about wealth, right? So for some of us, society has taught us, and I think for the most of us actually, and especially in this time of social media, society has been teaching people for a long time that success is having a bigger house, wealth is having a bigger house, it's having a bigger car, a better car, the red Ferrari, the Lamborghini, that wealth is having the nice holidays, and so there's this connotation, and I think it's all been a marketing ploy for many years, right, where we've been taught that if you're going to be wealthy, that's what your life has to look like. And so if that's how you define wealth, if you have adopted that as your definition of wealth, it makes sense why you work so hard to be able to get the bigger house, right? It makes sense why you prioritize being able to get the Lamborghini or the Ferrari or the Rolls Royce, because in your definition, that's what wealth is, right? And I think a lot of people find themselves in places where the definition of success that they hold and the definition of wealth that they hold has actually been given to them by society. So not only do I want you to look at what you value and what your definition of wealth is, I want you to also question, where did you get it from? Who gave you that definition of wealth? Who told you that being wealthy was living in a bigger house? Right? And I think for so many people, I've heard these stories countless times, that people only recognize that that's not what they value once they've pursued that thing and realize that this is not really what I want, right? And I've got a bit of a personal story when it comes to that, and I'll share it later. But I think something else that society is great at telling us is that wealth just equals money, right? And it equals having lots and lots of money. And I don't think that that's incorrect. I just think that it's incomplete, right? And I think it's incomplete for a few reasons, right? So I think reason number one that I would say defining wealth purely in financial terms is a bit flawed or a bit incorrect is that, okay, so reason number one that I think defining wealth in purely financial terms is incomplete is because sometimes people misdiagnose their problems as purely financial problems. So I've found in the courses that I've done in the past, in the one-on-one coachings that I've had with certain people, that people would come to me automatically thinking to themselves that if they sort out their finances, then they're gonna be okay, right? So they come to me seeking financial advice. They want to know more about budgeting. They want to know more about investing. They want to know more about saving and all of that and getting out of debt. And I think all of that is important. I think all of that is relevant. But I do think that sometimes we misdiagnose our problems as financial problems, and that's incorrect, right? And just to maybe take you a little bit deeper in terms of what I mean about that is that, for instance, let's say you are broke because you are struggling to say no to people who treat you as their emergency fund, right? So there's some people who will be irresponsible financially, and then they will come to you as their backup because they know that you'll always say yes, right? So they know that you won't say no, and so they come to you. Would you say that that's a financial problem, or is that an emotional health issue? Is it a matter of you lacking boundaries, right? Because I think that's what the problem is there. So in that kind of scenario, you're not broke because you're struggling financially. You're broke because you have trouble setting boundaries emotionally. So you might have an emotional health issue and diagnose that as a financial issue, right? Similar, if you've got an addiction to, I don't know, a drug or alcohol or something of that particular nature, if you are spending all of your money on this addiction, do you have a money problem or do you have an addiction issue, right? It's an addiction issue. So you've got a problem that is happening elsewhere in your life, but it's affecting your finances. And so I wouldn't necessarily say you're bad financially. I just think that you have an issue in other areas of your life and it's showing up in your finances. And I'm saying all of this to say to you that some of our financial issues are really just referred pain, right? They operate like referred pain. And what do I mean by that? So in the field of medicine, it's really when you are hurting in one area, you are bleeding in one area, but the actual root cause of the issue is in another area, right? Like, for instance, my son struggles with sinuses, right? But oftentimes his mouth will be very scratchy, but the issue is in his sinus. And so I could go to the doctor and be like, something is wrong with his mouth. But the mouth and the nose are connected, and so are the ears. So E and T, right? And if you're not careful and you define just success and wealth in terms of financial terms, you might miss the important areas of your life that actually need attention. And so sometimes we need attention in our relational health, we need attention in our emotional health, we need attention in our mental health and our mindset. But because we think the issue is purely financial, because we think that if we'll get our finances right, then everything will be sorted, we will never really do the work that we need to do in the other areas of our lives that are actually causing issues in our finances. And so that's why I don't buy the story that wealth is purely financial. I think financials are a huge part of wealth, right? Like, it's very difficult to not be stressed without money. So it's very difficult to be okay if you don't have money. But I do think that it's incomplete to say that money is the only thing that matters when it comes to understanding what wealth means, okay? And so there's another aspect when it comes to why I believe that society's definition of wealth being purely financial is incomplete. And that's because most of the time when people say they want to be wealthy, a lot of them are speaking about, they indirectly are assuming that it's going to make their lives feel a certain kind of way, right? So you assume that you're going to have a lot more peace. You assume that you're going to be less stressed. You assume that you're going to be happier. So everybody is not just looking for more money. They're looking for more money because they assume that it's going to make their lives feel a certain way. And I say this, and I've said this before on the podcast, that every single one of our lives has an emotional temperature, right? Every single one of our lives feel a certain kind of way. And I want to say to you that when you speak about building wealth, it's not just about what you have, what you own, and how much of that you own. It's not just about the quantity of the things that you own and the possessions that you have, but it's also about how your life feels. Every single one of our lives has an emotional temperature. My question is, what is the emotional temperature of your life? How does it feel to wake up in your life every day? Because I think that matters for wealth. The emotional quality of life that you have matters. You often hear people say, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and someone was saying they sat opposite this billionaire. And, they asked this billionaire, you've got so much money, why do you continue to do this? And he walked away from that conversation with the conclusion that this man is miserable. And I'm not saying rich people are miserable. That's certainly not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that if you assume that money is the only thing that matters in terms of defining what wealth is, you're going to get there and you're going to realize that you need a certain emotional quality of life for you to be able to enjoy your life and for you to be able to say, I'm wealthy. There's more to wealth than just having the money. I think the emotional quality of your life matters too. Okay, so now that I've set the groundwork in terms of understanding the various things that matter for a definition of wealth, I want to get into what I mean when I speak about wealth so that you can know what I mean. And hopefully if this is what you subscribe to and you want to journey along with me, then you'll understand so that we both come into the same place, so that we both find ourselves on the same page, right? So, and I'll begin this by telling a bit of a personal story. So last year in about March, I took a career break. And at the time, I thought that it was a career break and I thought, I was taking a sabbatical. But, more on that later. But I took a bit of a break, because I wanted to reconfigure my career. I wanted to understand where I am. I wanted to understand where I wanted to go, so that I could move with a bit more intentionality. I'd worked at this job for not this job, but worked at this company for about 8 years. And I just wanted, just to reassess, where am I? What do I want next? And I think that career break, that season of my life has been one of the most pivotal moments of my life. So transformational, because I think it helped me realize what I value. It helped me realize what matters to me and what I mean when I speak about wealth. Yeah. And so one of the things that I did on this career break was to work on myself on a holistic level, right? I worked on my mind. So I did lots of therapy, really worked on healing my inner child. I really worked on, my desires and just being like, who's Lelo? What is she like? What does she enjoy? What kind of work does Lelo really like doing? I took lots of walks. So I really discovered that I love nature. And I love taking walks. I love long walks. I love the sound of water. I love gardens. So I really took the time to figure myself out. And ever since that time, this is one of the things that I come away with, is that when I speak about wealth, at least from a financial perspective at this moment, I realize that I don't want a life that needs me to keep working to sustain it, right? And that for me is a complete mindset shift, because joining the workforce, getting my first job, my initial understanding of what it meant to be wealthy was getting the big house, was getting the nice car. Well, not really a nice car, but having a car, having certain things. It was more about possessions. And ever since I took this break, I've come to this place where, for me at least, it's really about creating a life where I don't need to escape. I don't need to do anything that I don't want to do, right? And I don't need to work on work that I don't enjoy either. For me, wealth is creating a life that doesn't need me to constantly work to sustain it. And what I mean by that is that if I have to pay for something every month, like paycheck to paycheck kind of thing, that's not for me, because that's not what wealth means for me. So I'm all for saving and investing and creating passive streams of income so that I can wake up one day and I can be sitting on my couch, and even though I'm just sitting and doing nothing, I'm still getting paid. That doesn't mean I'm not going to work, right? Because I do believe in work. I think this is work for me. I enjoy being able to speak to people, being able to teach, being able to write, being able to influence people, being able to add value in that way. So it doesn't mean that I'm not going to work. I don't advocate for being a couch potato and being lazy, nothing like that. Or retiring early. Like, yeah, we'll retire early, but we'll get into what that means. Let me not go there. But my definition of wealth is not having to work to sustain the life that I have. And that directly speaks to me being able to create a life of passive income. And I came to that realization when I took this career break, because I started to realize how much I enjoyed having freedom around my time. I enjoyed having access to my time, deciding when I was going to do what, deciding if I was going to go to the gym in the morning, if I was going to, work for a certain number of hours, if I was going to have some time for reading, some time for personal development. I enjoy that. I love that about myself. But that has implications for how I do life, and that has implications for how I manage money in my life. Because that means I need to be willing to create certain things and to be able to invest in certain assets that can pay me, even if I'm not working to sustain them. Okay? And so when I speak about wealth, that's what I'm referring to. But I'm also referring to me creating a life that I don't need to escape from, right? I think the world is filled with escapism. And when I say escapism, I'm referring to us engaging in activities, not purely because we want to, but because they help us escape things that we don't want to deal with, right? They help us escape lives we don't want to face. Addiction is like that, right? And you can pretty much use anything to escape, right? Some people become workaholics because they're escaping certain things that they don't want to face. Some people become compulsive eaters, right? Or shoppers, because for them, that's the way that they have learned to escape certain things. And so when I speak about creating a life that I don't need to escape from, I'm directly speaking to creating a life where holistically I'm doing well. So for me, I can't define wealth without incorporating wellness. I need to have a holistic view of what wealth is. Yes, I want to get paid and I want to have passive income and I want to get paid even if I'm not working. But I also want to be well. I also want to be well. So I value my wealth in terms of finances, but I also value my well-being and my wellness. And so over the course of time, and if you listen to the previous season of the podcast, which is season 2, you will hear me speak about the 7 pillars of wealth, because I believe that there's 7 pillars that if I'm going to create a life that I don't need to escape from, I'm going to have to do work and focus on 7 pillars in my life, right? And so I'm going to take you through those pillars, and hopefully you guys can reflect on where you are in terms of those pillars, and hopefully you can set goals in line with those 7 pillars. So area number 1 that I do work in is my spiritual health. And I think this is really important, and it's important to me because as human beings, we're made for relationship, right? And sometimes we find ourselves in traps where we are giving from an empty cup, right? Where we constantly are trying to relate with people on a horizontal level, but we've neglected our vertical relationship with God. And so I value my relationship with God because I recognize that that's where I find my identity. That's where I find peace. That's where I find direction. That's where I find clarity. And so my spiritual health plays a big part in me being able to function and for me to be able to create a life that I don't need to escape from, right? And so I hope that at that point, you recognize your need for a relationship with God, right? Nothing makes sense in this world without a relationship with God for me, right? I know there's people who go on without a relationship with God. I really think I can't be optimal if I'm not created, if I'm not connected, to my creator, right? God knows how he made me. So God knows how I function. And so I constantly need to be connected by way of intimacy with God so that I'm functioning from an optimal place. I'm functioning from a centered place. I'm functioning from a place of intimacy with the source. And so that I'm not finding myself giving from an empty cup, right? It's the place where I refill. It's the place where I fill my cup. So my spiritual health and my spiritual growth plays a very big part in terms of understanding and building a life of wealth. Number 2 is my vocation. And when I speak about vocation, I'm speaking about divine purpose, right? I've already said this, but only the creator of a thing knows why he created something, right? And so if I'm not connected with God, it's very difficult for me to know what my purpose is in life. Because God created me with an intention in mind. God created me with a specific purpose in mind. And so one of the reasons why I think my vocation and doing what I believe I'm called to do, walking in my divine purpose is important, is because it matters for my personal fulfillment, right? God takes our fulfillment and he hides it in our purpose so that we will chase that, so that we will chase our purpose to be able to find internal fulfillment. And for a very long time, I'd wake up crying and not feeling okay and saying, God, I don't feel fulfilled. Now, for some people, their vocation matches their professional life, and I think that's amazing. And for some people, it doesn't. But what matters is find what God has for you to do in the season that you're in. When I speak about purpose, I'm not speaking about something that you're going to do for the rest of your life. I'm speaking about your role in this season, because roles change, but purpose is this grand plan that God has for you. And in every season of your life, the roles will look different. When I say find what God has called you to do, find what God has called you to do. But you can't find that without relationship with God. You can't find that without investing in your spiritual health. And so that's why those two parts are very important when it comes to creating a life of wealth for me. Okay? Number 3, I look at my emotional health. And I think, I can't stress enough how important emotional health is. You know, one of the things that I realized about finances early in this journey of building wealth is that most financial decisions are emotional decisions, right? When I began to work on my people-pleasing tendencies, my money got better. And it didn't get better because I was budgeting better. It just meant that I stopped spending money on people that I was trying to please, which meant that I had a lot more margin in my budget to do the things that matter for me. And so if you don't invest in your emotional health, you'll always be trying to escape. If you want to know what makes people escape and want to overcompensate in their lives, it's emotional health. We're running from facing the emotional things that we're trying to run from. Some people are running from abandonment issues. Some people are running from, I don't know, you're running from whatever you're running from. But I would encourage you to invest in your emotional health, because often I've seen how emotional health riddles people's finances. Some of the financial decisions we make, like buying things to impress other people so that we can be accepted, those are all emotional health issues, but they're showing up in our finances. So work on your emotional health. That's a big part of making sure that you have a life of wealth, not just in terms of how your life feels, but it's also going to help you in terms of your finances. You're going to be able to save a lot more money because you're not going to be spending on impressing other people. You're not going to be spending on doing things so other people can accept you and affirm you and love you. Okay? And so related to that, closely related, is your mental health, your mindset as well. Because I feel like some of the emotional issues that we run away from dealing with are the reason. Some of the emotional health issues that we're running from dealing with are actually mutating into mental health issues. They're mutating into depression, they're mutating into anxiety, they're mutating into all sorts of mental health issues because we're not dealing with our emotional health issues. So work on your mind. Go to therapy if you have to, right? I remember there was a study done by the World Health Organization that said mental health is the #1 cause of disability in the world. What that means is that when you're disabled for mental reasons, it can get so bad that you can't work. It can get so bad that you can't work. And if you can't work, you can't earn, right? So get to a place where you're prioritizing your mental health, because that affects your ability to make money. You can't work without a mind that is doing well. So invest in your mental health, okay? So number 5, is relational health, right? And this is important. And this is an area of my life where I think I struggled with uniquely, where I didn't realize that I can't do life by myself, right? You can't have a successful life by yourself. One of the biggest cause of emotional health issues and mental health issues is a lack of supportive and great and intimate relationships. So invest in your relationships. Invest in finding friends, mentors, mentees, that are going to help you in becoming the best version of you. You can't become the best version of you by yourself. And everything that God is going to bring into your life, He's going to bring it into your life by way of relationship. God can do miracles. God can appear in your life and drop something in your life. But oftentimes I've found that God uses people to accomplish things in other people's lives. So getting better relationally is important. I once heard somebody say they've never heard a person who was on their deathbed ask them to bring a possession. They've never heard anybody say, bring me my key to my Ferrari on their hospital bed. They've never heard somebody say, bring me my Rolex. They've never heard them say, bring me my Gucci bag, bring me my Gucci shoe. But they've often asked for people. They've often asked for, where's this person? They've often asked for relationships. because relationships are currency. And that's why you find people who will have all the money in the world and they're depressed. They need to learn how to manage relationships. You need to learn how to nurture relationships, because relationships are wealth. Okay? And so another one that is very important is physical health, right? And similar to mental health, you can't earn money, you can't make money in a sick body. Everything that you're going to need to do to build a life of wealth is going to need your body. So focus on working out. Focus on working out. Go to the gym in whatever form or shape that looks like. Focus on eating well. Okay? Because that matters. It's very difficult to do great things with an ailing body. This is the only body you have. Nourish it. Cherish it. Take care of it. It's very difficult to build wealth with a sick body. Okay? And the last one is financial health. I think that is very important. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. I can speak about all the areas, but don't neglect financial health. Some of us need to learn how to make the money, right? And that's going to necessitate that we understand how to increase our value. We need to understand how to portray our value. We need to understand how to value ourselves so that we get paid properly. So some of us need to learn how to make the money. Some of us need to learn how to manage it, because making it and managing it require two different skill sets. Okay? And then some of us are going to need to learn how to multiply it. We're going to need to learn more about investing. We're going to need to learn more about asset classes. And so invest in understanding your finances. This is why I do what I do. Because I recognize that without education, without understanding, people perish. You're going to make big mistakes if you don't understand. I've made mistakes. And so I don't want people to do what I've already done. And that's why I come here and I speak about this. And so prioritize your financial health. Yes, get on a budget. Yes, learn more about investing, learn more about property, learn more about different stuff that affect your finances. And I want you to know that when it comes to financial health, it's not a one-time thing. Every time as your money grows, you're going to need to learn new financial skills so that you can do better. And I think these 7 areas, these 7 pillars, all come together to help me create a life that I don't need to escape from. All of life is interrelated. You can't just work on one area of your life and expect to feel successful and expect to be wealthy. Sure, I want you to be financially well, but I also want you to be well holistically. And so I hope that this conversation has been helpful for you. I think I've shared quite a lot. And I hope that you guys will go back and reflect on, what your definition of wealth is and whether or not you align with my definition of wealth and the Wisdom for Wealth definition of wealth. I hope that this was helpful for you. And if this has helped you in any way, I have only one request. Please share it with someone who needs it. And for those of you who haven't already, please subscribe, hit the bell so that you get notifications on all of our videos. But also I'm asking you to subscribe, right? Subscribe, like the video so that the algorithm can send it to as many people as possible. And I hope that I'll see you guys again soon. So take care. Bye.